So it's lovely to be here and to kind of present, I suppose, insights from the Irish context. And these are specific to mathematics teacher education. So I suppose I kind of want to clarify that as well from the outset. That's my own background, and that's where
Máire, you've stopped being, we can't hear you now.
Okay.
Oh, you can now, that's fine.
Are you sure?
Yep, that's it now. Sorry. Maybe
okay. Am I cutting in and out, or is it
you're okay for now. Yeah.
Okay. Let me know if there's any issues. I can look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to kind of again say that it's really in the context of maths teacher education that we looked at this in the Irish context, but we have started to look at other subject areas as well. I think it's important maybe just to get a sense of the Irish education system as we start out, and as we're talking about this issue. We have two levels, primary level and post-primary level. And we've been looking at this in terms of post-primary level education. We don't have specialisms at primary level in the Irish education. You qualify as a primary level teacher without any subject specifications. In the post-primary context, we have two cycles, junior cycle and senior cycle. Both are followed by a state examination, but in particular, the senior cycle is high stakes, where the state examination leads to entry into third level education. Mathematics is compulsory all the way through from primary to post-primary into post-primary education. So again, just to kind of give a context, it's a really important subject in our education system, and it's a national curriculum determined by government, determined by our National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. So it's a very centralised system, and everyone in the Republic of Ireland are following the same syllabus and the same curriculum from post-primary right through to the end of, from primary to right through to the end of post-primary. The post-primary maths syllabus has gone through quite a significant change as well since 2010. So that has had an impact on, I suppose, teacher education, maths teacher education, and what has transpired since then as well in terms of out-of-field teaching. Just in terms of post-primary teacher education, because that's where our research is based, we have two different routes into it. So we have a 4-year degree level, so concurrent teacher education program. And we also have the consecutive route where they can study their degree in their subject areas first and then enter into postgraduate initial teacher education. That has become a master's level qualification since 2014. So again, quite a significant change in the Irish context that way. But what I will say, outside of that, outside of the initial teacher education qualification, there is very little participation in continuous professional development. I suppose it's not kind of, they tend to be ad hoc workshops rather than any kind of valued professional development and progression within their careers. So that kind of side of things in the Irish context needs significant work. So it tends to be outside of the regular school teaching. It's not built into timetables or anything like that in terms of valuing professional development for teachers in Ireland. So just to give you kind of a context of where we're coming from. I know Linda spoke to there about, you know, out-of-field teaching and key aspects to it. And I suppose something that we've always adhered to, I suppose, in the Irish context when we started looking at this was our definition that we would have followed. So it very much goes back to Ingersoll's idea of teachers being assigned by school administrators to teach subjects which do not match their training or education. And that is something we've always has led us in terms of our definition of out-of-field teaching in the Irish context, in conjunction with the subject requirements of our National Teaching Council. So every teacher in Ireland has to register with our Teaching Council, and they have quite strict expectations around qualifications for teaching maths. So they've quite, particularly in terms of the content you need to have studied and having an initial teacher education qualification. So that has all the bearing in terms of how we interpret if a teacher's out of field or in field in the Irish context. This all began with a survey that I conducted in 2009, trying to assess the level of out-of-field teaching taking place in mathematics teaching at post-primary level in the Irish context. Now, this was a national survey that we undertook. It was paper and pencil at the time, different times to maybe now, post-COVID, but what we found at that time was that 48% of post-primary teachers teaching math were not qualified to do so in terms of our definition of out-of-field. The majority of those out-of-field teachers were from a science background or a business background. So they might have what would have been perceived as maybe mathematics, some sort of a mathematics background, but really they weren't qualified as we would have seen it in the Irish context. And the school leadership, in terms of assigning these teachers, they were primarily assigned to the junior cycle, so the lower levels of second level education or post-primary education, and to the weaker students. So we have different levels. We've foundation, ordinary, and higher level that you can study mathematics at, and these out-of-field teachers tend to be assigned to the lower and the weaker students, which obviously has huge implications in terms of the quality of learning for these students. And often these are the students who need the more qualified teachers, we would argue or suggest. I suppose the surprising finding for us at that stage was that 63% of out-of-field teachers who participated in this survey, and it was very much a representative national sample, they felt suitably qualified. So even though they were out of field, they felt they had enough to teach what they were, the level they were teaching. So that was, I suppose that stood out to us, that they didn't even maybe realise the need for a specific qualification or a teacher education around teaching maths. And those that were qualified tend to be more older and more experienced than the out of field. So it seems to be the newly qualified teachers were being assigned as well at that stage. I suppose what's unique maybe to the Irish context is this led to the development of a 2-year part-time professional diploma in mathematics for teaching. Now, this was nationally funded by our government, by the Department of Education and Skills at the time, and it was very much designed to upskill these out-of-field teachers. And this began in 2012. Now, keeping in mind the context, we had a new rollout of a very different national mathematics curriculum, and we were seeing that teachers weren't suitably qualified to teach this. So there was a lot happening around that time. But this is the very, very first time that our government got involved in the development of professional development and upskilling these teachers. So it was quite a significant moment in the Irish context. And the fact that it is being delivered nationally is significant as well. There is a new version of it's still ongoing, and there's a new version of this program in place since 2021. And it's being rolled out in other subject areas actually since as well. Just to give you a very quick overview, in terms of that professional diploma in maths for teaching, they do have to study 10 content modules. This goes back to our Teaching Council requirements for teaching maths. So this was quite a significant thing in the Irish context and for our teachers participating in this. And it had to be university level mathematics that they take. They also completed education components. So there was, again, some of the credits, 15 credits went towards this in the overall professional diploma. So they completed 5 workshops, and they also completed a week-long summer school. And these were all focused on, I suppose, education components, pedagogical components of teaching maths. But you can see their prominence was given to subject content knowledge rather than pedagogical content knowledge. Now, to our understanding, and I'm happy to be corrected, we think we might be the only kind of country where there's a national rollout of a professional development program to upskill mathematics teachers that's government funded. So I suppose we have that idea of a consistent program that's being delivered to all teachers around Ireland who would like to participate in it. And I suppose we have this idea of scale and a long-term experience of delivering this kind of a program since 2012. And I suppose that gives us an opportunity to look at some insights from that. And I'm going to share some of those findings with you in the time that we do have. And I suppose when we've been looking at trying to evaluate this program and its impact, we've gone back to the work of Desimone from 2009, who proposes the model, I suppose, for examining professional development and effective teacher professional development. And the steps are outlined there. So it's looking at teachers' experiences and looking at how it has impacted on their knowledge and their attitudes and beliefs, and how it has impacted on their instruction, and also has it increased in student learning. Now, we have not gone to step 4 in this model. We feel that's quite an impossible task, but we have tried to look at steps 1, 2, and 3 in this model between various research components. There has been a lot of research. We've conducted a lot, and there's a lot of work out there. I'm just naming a few bits here. I suppose I do want to draw your attention to that, but there's been different aspects we have examined in what I presented here today is very limited, I suppose, into what we have looked at overall, and I'm happy to chat further. But what we have also done is re-examine the level of out-of-field teaching again, which Ingersoll suggests that's important, that we do keep going back to that and the challenges of it. So we have tried to track that again in 2018 into 2019. So it does kind of fall back on 3 different surveys that we have conducted over that period since 2009 when we started, and we went back again in 2018. So the first survey very much looked at the level of out-of-field teaching and looking at their qualifications and where they were assigned to. And we repeated that survey again in 2018. So it's identical instrument, slightly updated, but it was a national survey again of out-of-field teaching. Survey 2 then was very much connected to the graduates of our professional diploma and trying to see where they now, looking at their attitudes and beliefs, seeing what are they assigned to teach and their experiences of the program as well. Okay, and that survey went out in 2018 as well. So just, I know it's very quick, but just kind of a brief overview of how we went about it. So it is survey research in terms of what I am presenting here. Now, what we did find when we went back again in 2018 is that the level of out-of-field teaching in mathematics had dropped from what was initially 48% to 25%. So that was quite a significant drop. We can only attribute that to our professional diploma in maths because there hadn't been an increase in teacher supply or anything like that around mathematics teachers through our initial teacher education programs. Now that has changed since, but we're quite confident this has come about from those participating in our professional diploma. So that's a nice outcome, I think, to see that level and seeing it have an impact at that stage. Some key findings, I suppose, again, relating back to maybe what was found initially and what we're seeing in 2018. I suppose the pattern hadn't changed greatly in terms of where out-of-field teachers were being assigned. That wasn't, I suppose, surprising to us. But what we did find was there's less out-of-field teachers teaching higher level. So we do feel that it had an impact maybe in that sense that school administrators were starting to see kind of, okay, this is something we do need to consider maybe where we're assigning them. When we went back to our graduates of the professional diploma, they gave us kind of a good insight as well that the level of teaching, the year groups they were teaching and the level of maths they were teaching had changed, which we had hoped for, that schools would recognise this qualification and that they would see these people as important people in their school context and that they contribute. So they were, I suppose, being assigned higher level maths and different year groups and more senior year groups. So I suppose in that sense, it did have an impact on their professional development and on their assignment within the schools. But I suppose we would still suggest that the weaker students and the younger students are being assigned out-of-field teachers, which is something is a concern to us, and that ideally the graduates of this program should have been, I suppose, kept with these students, and I suppose just in order to foster these students' skills and learning. Some other key findings from that professional diploma as well, the graduates, was they did report, and I will say this report, so it was a self-evaluation on their behalf, a substantial change, I suppose, in how they went about teaching maths and their beliefs around maths teaching. Very much kind of going back to linking to student subject knowledge, for example, or their explanations, using group work, using problem-based learning, things that the new specification and curriculum were requiring. So they would have said their practices changed, and that's something nice to hear. Whether that is the reality in the classrooms is a different scenario, but I suppose we can just take it as what is being reported. So I know I've kind of tried to summarize some of the key findings here. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I know we're kind of casting a positive light on this. There were other aspects coming from work and research, the research program built around this. We wouldn't have seen a dramatic change in these teachers' subject knowledge over the course of the 2-year program. It was very much done in their own time. So they attended in the evening times and at weekends, and that was really stressful for teachers participating in this professional diploma. Some of it became just, they were trying to get a qualification to secure job employment in the school. Maths is quite a important subjects, so it guaranteed employment in the school. And some of them didn't go teaching maths after they had completed the diploma. So it's not perfect. We're not trying to paint it as perfect, but I suppose we are seeing a change and an impact on the level of out-of-field teaching in some of these practices. I suppose what I would suggest is something positive from our work is that we have tried to tackle that idea of measuring out-of-field teaching and being consistent in our approach. So I think that's something important to consider when we are examining it in any context. And we did rely on survey methodology. I know there's criticisms of that, but has allowed for that consistent approach in how we've gone about things. But we would suggest that there is an important challenge in terms of designing longitudinal evaluations of linking teachers' participation in any sort of professional development with changes in pedagogical approaches and student achievement in the classroom, going back to Desimon's kind of model there for evaluating effective teacher professional development. So I hope that has given some insights, Linda. I'm not sure around time, but I'm happy to discuss anything or questions.